All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Palantir Weekly. This is episode number 250. I'm here today with Arnaldo and Namir. We just finished Palantir's Q2 2025 earnings on Monday. Palantir put up $1 billion in revenue for the first time in history of being a public company, and the stock price is up about 30% this week. Stock price now, year to date, or actually 20% this week, is up 148% year to date. It is one of the best performing stocks in the S&P 500, and the market capitalization is now above 420 billion. What a week, to say the least. Arnie, Amir, how are you guys doing?
Doing great. And look, this stock is unstoppable. Works more than you.
That's fair. That's true. Amir, how are you?
I don't know about that. I just saw some stat that Amit's follower count is actually growing faster than Palantir is. So I don't know about if they're working harder than Amit, but I mean, fantastic earnings. I mean, this was, okay, we said last earnings was pivotal. I think this one was pivotal. We learned two things that changed like everything for me for Palantir. And my new fair intrinsic value for Palantir is not only above 3 digits for the first time, it is actually close to 130. It's like 129 now. And that is because we learned two major things. One, of course, the 10x of US revenue within 5 years. That one major. The second major one that I think a lot of people are overlooking is that they are looking to decrease headcount and have AI FDs do a lot more of the heavy lifting. And what that does to margins creates some pretty fantastic value when you start to look at the intrinsic value side of things. So those two major things, I mean, big surprises. Like even if the year-over-year numbers were amazing, stuff like that, but learning those two things like changed a lot for me.
Well, Arnie, what were your raw thoughts to some of these earnings, and then we'll get into the specific numbers.
I checked again yesterday all the transcript of the call, looking for something bad to see, and to be honest, was very hard to find. And to be honest, nothing really new compared with what we were already discussing just as the earnings were out. If we really want to see something negative, we need to look at international commercial, because that was the only spot where the company was not shining. Even international government actually did quite well, pushed by the UK. But I think we will see some light of the international commercial over time. Essentially, if the US commercial grows as much as car painted 10x in 10 years, which is more or less 60% CAGR every year, it means that this business would reach a very considerable size. And for how things work, once you are perceived as a standard by the US world, then Europeans and other countries need just to follow. Like the risk of losing the standard, and that's potentially very detrimental. So overall, is very hard to find something for which not being excited. I think the stock has reflected it quite well now. And I would say it's very interesting to see even the most tough opponents of the stock from the analyst community accepting, okay, this is something that we have never seen before. We need to accept we're idiots that we were not studying it well, despite the 20 years of doing a career like this. 3 small retails here, and a very nice group of the community online actually understood something that people, especially paid even millions potentially at that point, were not able to spot on. So congrats to us.
Yeah, I mean, Brent Steele with Jeffries, he's the one that's been really local, going on CNBC multiple times, Bloomberg Technology. He's the one that's been saying throughout all my career, no stock has ever had this PE for a sustainable amount of time. It's just a matter of time. It's gonna crash, blah blah. And now he's like changing his tune. It's like, okay, Palantir is real. He even goes on to I just read he was on Datadog's. He covers that stock as well. He went on and said, well, Palantir is saying that they're gonna 10x revenues and decrease headcount. What are you doing with headcount? Are you able to do that? So now he's like using Palantir as a reference to other companies. Like, yeah, he's really turned around and capitulated. And yeah, we're really starting to see that across all of Wall Street, where people are like, yeah, we didn't get it, probably still don't get it, but stock price is up, so maybe there's something there. I just wish I could get my hands on some more equity research reports after Q2 to actually read what are they saying, because so far we read, all three of us, and probably a lot of people in the chat have read, a lot of equity research reports from these Wall Street firms on Palantir. To be honest, not once have I read someone actually look at the business.
What about UBS? UBS a couple months ago.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. The UBS one that did the AIP piece, good. Mariana gets it, but outside of Bank of America and UBS, they're all like discussing PEs, discussing price to sales ratios. They're not discussing the business at all, which made me believe that these guys, they don't get it at all. So that's been like the main differentiator, to see like, okay, they're all along for the ride now, but what are they actually writing in their report? So I don't know if I'll get my hands on one. I'm not a banking client of any of them, so we'll see. But so far, they've been very, very underwhelming.
I think it's quite incredible. The average price target is now 152. I mean, to your point, Amir, Brent Thill, he was on CNBC on Tuesday, and is very humble Brent Thill. This is a guy he still has a $60 price target. He still has a sell, but he wasn't vocally acting as if he's telling people to sell the stock, because it's hard, to say the stock's going back to 60 when it's at 180. And a lot of these other firms, although they didn't raise their targets to like 200 or something like that, they raised it from 110 to 150, from 80 to 140. I mean, you're seeing these different price targets come in because it's hard to deny some of the price action. So before we get into the numbers, I think let's start off with that, because I think that is also something that has really fascinated people all week. And how could it not, right? A lot of net worths went up because of this. Arnie, let me start with you. What do you make of the price action? 187, think it's justified? Do you think it's not? Do you think it's hype? Do you think it's institutions piling in? Like, how do you conceptualize where the stock is trading at these levels?
Okay, let's assume we didn't know that the stock went up. How do you think the stock should have reacted? To be honest, I think it is absolutely fair that the stock got a pump after it, for the simple reason that the reason why it's doing this well now is because they exceeded the expectations by a lot. We remember we were talking about 937.40 smashed with $1 billion revenue, and that created the premise to get insane operating income as well. And essentially, once you have that combination of very strong revenues, very strong margin, combined with a revenue guidance that went from the 30s to the 45, if I remember correctly, for the year. That means, wait a second, if you're raising the guidance that much, half year, what's going on? Like, this is the moment, especially once the stock has gone this parabolic, where the management will be a bit more conservative into what they're guiding, because they know that if they don't deliver, the stock gets smashed very hard once you have these high multiples and suddenly you underdeliver. So I consider this as a strong sign of confidence from the management side. But during the stream, I remember I said a comment I don't see why people having the stock should sell right now, because there are no real reasons apart. Oh, the stock is expensive. Like, there is nothing breaking the story. And for the kind of stock that Palantir is, which is a growth story, we should ask ourselves, okay, after these earnings, is the growth story flat, decreasing, or is it actually getting insane value? And as long as the story remains very appealing for us as for institutional investors, I just think that there will be more buyers than sellers until some excesses can be reached.
Amir, how do you make sense of 187 on the price action?
Yeah, I mean, I think as we mentioned, like if the price to sales is 3, 4, 500, it doesn't really matter. The stock itself, it hasn't had a negative catalyst in what feels like forever, so it completely makes sense that it would keep going up, because as Arnie mentioned, who during the going into earnings, who did not have their expectations smashed? Like everyone, including like hardcore diehard Palantir fans, were probably very, very surprised to the upside. And we're not only talking like top line revenue, we're not only talking like free cash flow, operating margins, like everything across the board, like everything they outperformed on every single metric, surprised everyone. So what's there, as Arnie mentioned, like if you just ignore the stock price and you had to guess, would the stock move up or down based on what just happened? And yeah, I think most people would agree that yeah, it's probably going to go up. There's nothing negative to attach onto. Like the only thing going against the stock are some pricing metrics like the price to sales or the PE ratio, or for some people, like I just read some comments like Palantir's RSI is sky high. Like who cares? Like like the business is just executing beyond everyone's imagination. And what that means is that everyone has been when they value Palantir, they're probably being very, very conservative. And that's what I mentioned, like going into every earnings, like, okay, why am I not selling the shares? Even though going into earnings, my fair value for Palantir was around 75. It's now 130. So like not quite a double, but close to it. And that's because we just learned so much every passing quarter that just raises the intrinsic value for Palantir like substantially every single quarter. And this is just like a random Q2. Imagine like the trajectory of the business when once Europe, like this is with Europe being stagnant, like in international commercial not doing anything, international government trailing like significantly, like we're talking not high growth at all compared to the US business. So imagine when both are firing on all cylinders, what kind of business we're looking at then. When adoption is increasing as well, as we know, they operate within every single industry that exists. That's kind of hard to grasp for people. Like Palantir, it can enter into logistics, it can enter into manufacturing, like any kind of business, healthcare, finance, whatever you want. People seem to like overlook how big the addressable market is and how much they can actually grow and how sustainably they can grow and at what margin. So yeah, makes sense that the stock is going up to me. I don't know.
What about you?
I mean, look, I think there needed to be a positive reaction based on that earnings, and we had a positive reaction, but it's almost like every day this week that positive reaction compounded because more people were excited about the story. I mean, I read as much analysis as I could from Main Street, Bloomberg, CNBC, Yahoo, all these guys. Everyone unanimously said it was a great quarter. They didn't have any red flags to point out. The only thing, as Arnie, you said, is valuation. That was the only concern. So, but I agree with your point, Amir. What's the difference between 500 times sales and 100 times price of sales? There's nothing. Like realistic, 100 is ridiculous and crazy. 500 is ridiculous. 50s, the average software company gets 20. If they're really good, realistically, it's 15. You get like 20. CrowdStrike gets like 23, 24. So Palantir has always been in a league of its own. But this quarter, they put up the numbers to justify why they deserve to be in that league. And I think the most exciting part about all this is that NVIDIA didn't get the growth curve in the stock until they had a growth curve in the business. Palantir, for trillions of reasons, got basically the 15x on the stock from the lows before they showed the type of growth that like an NVIDIA needed to show to get investors to appreciate it. And that is always going to be the story of Palantir to an extent, of just like so many people are obsessed with it. So much of retail cared about it. So many people anticipated it could happen. And then this quarter was the beginning of it actually happening. And now the question is, can they sustain it? And if they can, as you said, Arnie, why sell? Why do you sell into a growth story unless you think the growth is going to stop? And nothing in that quarter gave us any inclination that it's going to stop.
I mean, do you remember Tesla essentially started the looping on itself until some wild excesses were reached, where the growth estimates were, oh, we grow 50% forever, despite the fact that we are insanely big, despite the fact that these results were pushed by low interest rates, despite the fact that we were essentially in an EV bubble. Like now, I feel, yes, the results are very strong, but these results are not pushed by bubble. And if I have to be like, if I need to judge how we think the trajectory is, we are just at the early part of the steepening of a curve of adoption. Like, if you just ask the number, like the average worker in any company, they don't know what Palantir is. So the adoption potential is insanely big. The company is already executing, and we need to remember that the more it executes, the more it is known, the more network effects are triggered, and the more network effects are triggered, the more insane the unit economics can become. I think Karpa mentioned something very powerful in the earnings call. That is something we keep insisting also. How do we prove that what we do works? Look at our financials. The moment where you don't have financials as strong as ours, and as of today is almost impossible, you need to accept that we're doing something right.
Yeah, another thing that really was powerful during the earnings call, which we've kind of been saying, but being asked about the Salesforce, and he's like, dude,
we don't know that.
Yeah, we don't need that. The software sells itself, and if you want to have a seat at the table and be able to have a voice in the future, you better get financials like ours, and you get that by becoming partners with us.
Amir, let me just play that part real quick, and then I'll let you keep analyzing it.
One of the many controversial, we were doomed to failure decisions we made was that we rejected an idea of basically the way software is often done, useless product that becomes parasitic. You can't get rid of it. And you have 1,000 steak dinners all convincing you by something is useless you can't get rid of. And we believed that we would always be downstream from the value we create, and we would be able to capture that value. And if you look how this company is organized in government and commercial, it is all built around those ideas, including internal orchestration, including our flat hierarchy, including the products we deliver. Our primary sales force now, and I think likely in the future, are going to be current customers telling other customers, if you want this to work, bring them in and listen to how they orchestrate their culture inside your culture with their products. And it's not that we won't have direct salespeople, but what's really helping us now is the increased credibility so that people use more of our product on day one, so that they're not using the Foundry product of 3 years ago. They're really aspiring to what can be done with ontology and large language models and our FDE structure. And the disadvantage of this is, you don't have 10,000 people roaming around selling something they don't understand. But the advantage is we go from, once we come in the door, we come in with enormous credibility. So the person we're selling to believes we will make them a lot of money, save them expenses, or we will make their soldiers safer and more lethal. And they believe it because they've heard it from someone they trust, and or in the US economy, there are a lot of people that go from one job to the next. So that somebody we meet in one place very likely will be somewhere else in a year or two. And the first call we get, in fact, I was just doing a customer call, partner call. We're very early with these people. The story was, hey, I got blocked at my last enterprise. They wouldn't let me buy Foundry. I've been following Foundry and now Ontology. First call was to us. And then when the meetings have shifted from, hey, we may not know how to use you to very much tell us how we could create the kind of leverage you have. And that's why these numbers are going up at the top end and at the bottom end, because we're coming in with a different kind of credibility and leverage. So in the near future, the 10x revenue we are going to get in the US over the next, in my view, next 5 years. But certainly what we forecasted for this year, it's really people saying, wow. I mean, and then you have, and then everyone talks about us on the earnings calls. So like when you see AIG or others saying, I believe I can dramatically change my business at a lower cost. You know, CEOs, CIOs, chief revenue officers, the whole group are like, get them on the phone. And this just makes our whole thing easier, because we do not have time or interest in spending all the time we did in the past, starting from complete ignorance. We're starting from a much higher level. And then the higher level allows us to ratchet up. So,
Amir, do you think that is going to be the strategy that keeps them growing at these levels?
No, the strategy to keep them growing is to have their current customers continue to scale. We can get into that, but what he said, that we haven't mentioned it yet. I mean, I don't know how long this has been going, like 20 minutes, but that's another key thing, like the whole credibility talk, because as he just mentioned, we are now in Q2 earnings. We have been observing this, a bit in prior quarters, but specifically during Q2, do you know how many companies are outing during their own earnings calls? Like, yeah, we're using Palantir to do this. We're gonna do this with Palantir. We're partnered with Palantir. Like, do you know what kind of credibility that has when like some of the most powerful companies in the world are like desperate to name drop you during their own earnings calls, because that will make their own investors and analysts be more optimistic about you. Like I've seen people on X actually track this. I guess there is some investment platform that lets you search transcripts for Palantir. But I mean, it is off the charts. I've seen so many companies keep talking about Palantir during their own earnings calls. And as you mentioned, like the credibility, like it's not like they get on the phone now, as Carp said, and be like, we don't know if what we should use you for. They're like, dude, get us those metrics, like make us grow like you are. Which is a huge shift, and we're seeing that.
And you're on board with that as the strategy over a traditional sales force to accelerate top and bottom line growth?
No, the most powerful sales strategy for Palantir, that is when their customers talk about time to value. There are so many different industries you can't relate. Like, we are watching AIP cons, we get shown these like use cases for Palantir, like, yeah, if you plug in this model, you can solve this bed crisis in this hospital. Like, people can't relate to every use case, but what they can relate is like, yeah, this used to take us 9 months, it takes us 20 minutes now. Like, everyone can relate to that. So that's like the number one selling thing, like how quickly you can start to do things and how more efficient you can become, because everyone talks time. Everyone talks money. No one understands like every single use case. But when you start dropping those numbers that we've been seeing for a long time now, I think that's the number one sales pitch for Palantir.
Arny, your thoughts on what Carp said about how they grow sales?
Can I brag a little bit?
Go ahead, you got it.
What we are seeing is...
Wow, pulling up the receipts, August 2022, huh?
So the bottom of the bottom, I wrote this small article explaining, look, the way we should look at Palantir is not as just a company selling software, but we need to think of it as a network. Peter Thiel backed Facebook, which is the definition of a network. Obviously, a very different network in terms of sizing, composition, but the logics that made Facebook absolutely dominant were network effects. And the reason why network effects are very powerful is because they trigger a dynamic where the unit economics just start to fly. Rather than the company trying to push, it is actually pushed by all the people of the network being happy to bring in other people. And that's exactly what we are seeing right now. And guess what? The bigger the network becomes, the stronger it becomes, and the relatively easier it is to keep acquiring new customers. So what is happening at aggregate scale is rather than seeing Palantir desperately trying to push, please buy our Foundry, now there are customers knocking in the door, please get us in. So this is the condition that makes Palantir financials become very strong. Karp mentioned, our clients are asking us, how do we get this operational leverage? And what he's referring about is this thing. I made this chart specific to R&D, including SBC. But the picture overall, including all the expenses, is more or less the same. What Palantir is doing is increasing the size of the business while essentially keeping the cost more or less the same. And if you think of it, it's quite paradoxical. You are spending more or less the same, but at the same time, it is absolutely clear that Palantir is dominating in terms of product innovation. How do you do that? Well, network effects, the revenue, you have the AI to help you being efficient into deploying the research and development.
You also have the best talent in the world.
And at the same time, the revenues come in due to the network effects, creating this insane operating leverage, meaning that the cost can grow but don't grow as much as the revenue, creating all the difference that keeps expanding much more than the revenue. So the intuition of why Palantir is so valuable is if the revenue keep growing around 40 and potentially 50%, with this operating leverage, the free cash flow, the net income, can keep growing much more.
Yeah. That's what makes it exciting.
I think you wrote that piece with the Airbus use case, right? Where they said that essentially Airbus is perhaps the biggest client in Europe still for Palantir. And the way that it was explained back then, I don't recall the exact numbers, but it's like they have like this preventive maintenance use cases where Airbus themselves are using Foundry, like the logistics people are using Foundry, like the manufacturers are using Foundry, and all of these people, like thousands of different people, like outside of Airbus themselves, are using Foundry without even knowing that they're using Foundry. And they're like, oh my god, what is this? So that's like the first use case that made me realize like how quickly the network effects can actually start to work when given scale. So I guess that's what you had in mind when you wrote that article, Arny, back in 2022.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Back then. Yeah, so that Airbus use case did a lot for Palantir investors, like early on, to start to understand, like, oh my god, we have something special here. But you mentioned something interesting, Amit, and that's about the talent force. And we got some news from that during the earnings call as well. And that is like, well, we're seeing like Meta poaching people with like these hundreds of millions of dollars of sign-on bonuses and rumors of billions of dollars to just sign on, like stealing top talent from competitors back and forward. And Palantir was asked this, well, how do you retain the best talent in the world? And the answer was actually like kind of the best case scenario where they don't have to overpay extremely. They just say like, no, people want to work here because they make a difference. Like as soon as you start working here, within 3 months, you're working on something that's going to make headlines, like that's going to be impactful, that's going to be powerful. So getting some clarity, like the analyst questions were good this time around. I mean, we're not always blessed with amazing questions, but like I think everything was relevant to the times. We got that answer, and I think answered it perfectly, and what you want to hear as a shareholder. Palantir is not gonna, overcompensate to retain the best talent. No, like people want to work there, and that's so powerful when you hear that from a business that you're investing in. That like the company is so attractive to work at that they don't need to engage in these, I don't know what you should call them, drafts of talent out there.
So, still questions only from Mariana and the knives, but you're more you seem more satisfied than the other times.
Brent is coming on the next earnings now. He's turned around. He's the biggest bull now.
He's making his purgatory tour until he redeems all his.
I kind of, I was thinking about it after. I kind of like that they only take Dan and Mariana, because it's like, it's their earnings call. Like, they're the ones framing the earnings call. Like, what if you have some stupid analyst? Like, you think Rishi deserves to ask a question?
I kind of want to see it being called out about the Motel 6 thing, like live on air.
By the way, Rishi has upgraded Palantir, just for everyone who doesn't know, from 40 to 45 now.
Yeah. No, but I completely disagree, because look, while most analysts might not get Palantir, it's still a good opportunity to learn more about the company, to have an opportunity for them to ask these uncomfortable questions.
No, but what could Brent possibly ask that's uncomfortable? You see my point? Like, he's gonna say some bullshit. He's gonna say, well, when do you guys like? They're going to ask things that aren't relevant. Is my point.
No? His question to Datadog was great. Like, dude, Palantir is gonna do this. What were you doing? Like, I mean,
what would he ask? Overall, what do you think he could ask that would make Karp and Sham sweat to answer?
I don't know if they would sweat. I mean, they are pretty good at holding their own. But what I mean is, as an investor, you want as much information as possible about the company. Like, you don't want to just blindly believe. Like, it doesn't matter.
No. I 100% agree with that. I'm genuinely asking, what could those type? Because not every analyst is created equal. Not every analyst deserves that. If you ask a stupid question, you shouldn't be on the earnings call. So my question is, what do you think the people that have fundamentally misunderstood the story, what could they possibly ask that would actually give all of us value?
Okay, how about the other way around? When they used to have more than Mariana and Dan, who asked such a bad question that they didn't even deserve to call in?
Well,
like, I can't recall like any legitimately shitty questions.
But that's when the company wasn't executing. That's actually when they were the most transparent.
Yeah,
right?
But the vision was the same. I mean, look, net benefit to investors to have more analysts. You're not always gonna get, as you mentioned, like not all analysts are created equal. But I mean, Dan Ives, the last couple of quarters, he's been asking one and the same question and being dodged on it every single time. It's like,
that's fair.
Like, he's been asking, what's the adoption rate? Not
AI
conversion rate of boot camps, like 3 quarters in a row, and they never answered it. He just kept asking it, like, what's the purpose of that? Like, the same argument can be made for Dan Ives as well. Just because he's on Hyperbull doesn't mean that he's gonna ask like better questions to like inform the investor base. So I don't particularly agree with that. I've been vocal about it for a long time. I think overall net benefit to have more analysts. I don't personally like it. I think it's better than the investor questions that we have, like being submitted and top voted every single quarter. When dividend? What does Palantir do? When stock split? Like, what the hell is that? That's the one you need to remove. But actually have the analysts come on.
Dude, if they did a stock split at 180 to like, I don't know what, 5 for 1, got it back down to like 2030, this would go crazy. Yeah. They should not do that. That would obviously feel a little weird.
Is the purpose only for like options? Is that the only reason you would stock split at like 150, like to have more options activity? Like, I don't get it. Why do people want a stock split at 150? Like, it's especially Robinhood and all these other brokerages now are doing like fractional shares. Who cares if they split or not? Is that the only reason? And anyway, before we move on, I want Arny's opinion on the analyst topic. We both disagree on different aisles on this. I want Arny as the decider, the third party here. And you're not allowed to take a middle of the road approach. You either agree with Amit or you agree with me.
I would be happy to have some tough questions because that would make me feel more useful if some drama arrives again.
Arnie doesn't give a shit about Brent Thill asking a question. He does not care. Oh my god!
I mean,
look, in general,
look,
I think it would be good for more analysts. I've listened to a lot of earnings calls, and some of these questions are so stupid that I think the Palantir executive team was just like, "Why are we giving these guys airtime? They're not gonna like, you know." But I get your point, Amir. Obviously,
okay. I get that too. But look, people now with Palantir, they've missed the story. We've seen analysts being replaced by their firms because you did not get this story, get the F out. Like, we've seen that happen with Palantir. And as we see, like, people are like, dude, we have been sleeping on Palantir. Like, we better do some homework. Like, I think the risk of having completely nonsensical questions is extremely low for Palantir right now. Like, okay, fine, that argument could be made 2 years ago, even like 1 year ago, when we didn't start to see this like real acceleration on every part of the business. But now they're not allowed to sleep. Like, their clients are pissed off. Imagine being a Jeffries client, whoever client, and there's been accelerating on this stock since they went public, and the stock has gone from 7 to 190. Like, they're not allowed to be so clueless on the name anymore. Like, simply, they're not allowed to. So I think the risk is very low of having like completely clueless stuff at this point.
I don't think that we reach the point of the earnings calls of ServiceNow where you have analysts making so many questions on the specific numbers. Here you added 250 rather than 255. Like, they all go into the small details without really focusing on the pictures. While, for instance, these questions that Mariana and Danives provided are very much into understanding the overall picture, like the direction of the overall company. It's not about, why did you perform 3% more or less into one thing. Like, the company doesn't care of talking about that, and it would add very little value to the analyst. Once you were talking about this dynamic, I started thinking of right now you're in a position of strength. Like, you're doing wonderfully as a creator, but not only in terms of numbers, also in terms of real reputation you're building, because you are generally building a strong audience without trying to scam people, without trying to deceive people. If you receive criticism, what do? Like, you can just turn that criticism into showing, look, that's exactly what I'm doing, and I'll show you why what I'm doing actually makes sense. So you essentially transform that negative thing into a positive thing. Right now, let's make this thought experiment. What can someone criticize about what you're doing if they want to hurt you?
Well, I found out this week I have spoonerism. So
what is that?
What's that?
Okay, so you guys, I found out too. So spoonerism is a verbal error in which a speaker accidentally transposes the initial sounds or letters of two or more words. So, for example, I would say you have hissed the mystery lectures versus you have missed the history. See, I was about to say history lectures. History lectures. This happens about 55 times a day on the stream. So, yeah.
Aren't you like a professional speaker? Shouldn't you be like clear and concise?
Okay, let's say an analyst arrives and, how can you pretend to be the tier 1 creator if you have a spoonerism?
I would say, well, people laugh at it. It makes it more human. People enjoy the content and they get a little chuckle, and then we move on with the analysis. So.
Okay, you provided more value. So when you address criticism and you know what you're doing, actually that increases the value. I experimented that when I was sharing content on Palantir and I was bombarded by, but SBC, but unprofitable. It's like, okay, even like the big creators like Joseph Carson were very critical of Palantir. That was for me a great opportunity to explain what I was seeing.
So your argument is if there are some analysts that are negative on the call, Palantir could just turn that into a positive, basically.
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah, I think
they have what Trump said, like you have the cards.
Yeah, you have the leverage as well.
There is one criticism that Amit can never escape, and it definitely hurts him whenever it is brought into public. I mean, there are two irredeemable things.
I already know what he's
The first one is he has his stakes well done, completely irredeemable. There's nothing you can say.
First of all, it's medium well. It's medium well. It's not well done.
Well done. He just pretends online because he received so much backlash on the well done that he's now said medium well. The second one is still not watched The Lord of the Rings. Completely redeemable. Like, what the hell?
Dude, but to be honest, people know my attention span is so bad for movies that I think they've somewhat, because it's not just Lord of the Rings. It's like any movie outside of Christopher Nolan. But.
Okay, let's move on.
Yeah, let's get into numbers. So, Amir.
After 40 minutes. Okay.
After 40 what charts do you have? I know you plug stuff into Excel. I mean, you don't have to show us every chart, but if there is a couple of them,
whatever you guys want to see, I will show you big ones that are important to me, and then I can just show you whatever you want. So first of all, the one that shows the scalability, we are very familiar with this. Waiting for
oh, there it is.
Okay, so when people, I've been seeing commentary online about how sustainable the growth is. I got one bear case. They're like, dude, no company can grow at like 40-50% compounded for like so many years. Like the law of the rule of big numbers, bro. I'm like, dude, do you even know Palantir? So the most important part here, I'm gonna address that with a few charts here. So the first one, of course, the net dollar retention just keeps increasing, where for the past 5-6 quarters, the majority of the revenue growth is coming from existing clients, people that have been with Palantir for 12 months or longer. And that also adds to what Carp has been saying about, like, people want to get the same business metrics and unit economics that Palantir has, because they are increasingly spending more and more with Palantir. And this is what creates, that scalability. Like only 20 out of 48% of the revenue growth this quarter came from new clients. The rest is like existing ones. And as you can see, this chart, it doesn't seem to be slowing down. So that's argument one for, the scalability and how long they can sustain high growth rates. When you have a base of almost 30% growth just from existing customers and the rest is just from new ones, I mean, that is very sustainable. But I also want to look at some of the contract balances. Of course, we know about new all-time high in net new deals, both new all-time highs in deals of 1 to 5 million, showing that they also have that capturing mid-sized businesses as well, not only like all these major deals, but also deals close of at least 10 million, also new all-time high. But what I wanted to look at is first of all, total contract value. And as the name implies, this is how much the total contract value they signed for the quarter, up 143%. And as you can see, like there's a clear like chart here as well. There is some seasonality, but overall 2.3 billion just this quarter. If we look at the remaining deal value, it is up to 7.1 billion, which is 65% year over year. So remaining deal value is how much value, including options in the contracts, they still have to recognize. Now, not all of that is guaranteed, as there are some options, but I mean the trend here is clear as well. Like 7.1 billion that they haven't collected yet, assuming that all those options are exercised.
Dude, that's really exciting growth. I mean, this is one of the metrics I think most people are underestimating as well from the earnings.
Yeah, but this one, is overall, but just in US commercial, 145% growth to 2.8 billion just in US commercial. And as you can see in this chart, like the number is one thing, but look at the past quarters, like the growth. I mean, 3 quarters in a row with like 100% growth. And one of these, like in Q2, like a year ago, the comp period also grew 100%. So first you had 100% as the comparison period, but then you grew another 145 on top of that. And people are like, well, for how long can they keep growing at this fast rate? Well, all the balances on the contracts are saying that, yeah, this is not slowing down anytime soon. Similarly, remaining performance obligations. So while remaining deal value, this includes options in the contract. So not all of that is guaranteed. RPO is guaranteed, but it's mainly, the commercial business, because a lot of the government deals are structured in a way that can't be captured in RPO due to, time and options in the contracts. But still, this is exponential. Look, this is the beginning of an S curve, 2.42 billion in RPO that is guaranteed revenue to be collected. I mean, everything you look at is screaming Palantir can sustain this growth for a long time. It is not slowing down anywhere. No matter what kind of balance you look at for the contracts, they're all going up and into the right and not slowing down. In fact, most of them are accelerating how much they're growing. So I'm very confident when Carp says, yeah, we're gonna 10x revenues. I think I might have come to that conclusion even without Carp specifically saying that. I might have come to the same conclusion, because the acceleration is just insane. The sustainability, seeing the receipts, no, our customers are increasingly spending so much more with us. We're providing them so much more value. We're seeing the evidence in the earnings calls. They're coming willingly on AIPCon saying dude, Palantir is changing our business. They are increasingly spending more with Palantir. So that is the biggest key takeaway from me. The top line growth, of course, impressive. The margin expansion, of course, impressive. But when you look at okay, but for how long can they keep doing this? Because they need to do that to justify the valuation. As we've been saying, the stock chart is up and into the right, pricing in a lot of future performance. So you want that evidence that, yeah, they can actually keep up that performance for a long time, or even accelerate what we're seeing now. That's the biggest takeaway.
To add to your point real quick, C3 AI reported preliminary Q2 results today after the bell. It's not good. Revenue is set to decline 20% year over year versus guidance of increasing 19%. For those that don't know, this company, which is literally ticker symbol AI, was seen as a Palantir competitor back in 2022. Stock's down a lot. I mean, Arny, just any reaction to Amir's point is hey, the S curve is happening, and at the behest of the S curve are companies like this that look like they're going out of business.
The best thing of the market is that a system that naturally helps itself over time, and this company was like a bug in the system trying to capitalize on the AI ticker. And that eventually helps at the beginning. Remember 2022? For those old enough in the stock to remember it, there was a moment where the interest of AI was starting to increase, and C3 AI was mooning while Palantir was lagging. And everybody in the community were like, how the F is possible? Because we knew that one company was just bragging, the other was executing. So it's very nice to see we are AI, enterprise AI, rather that is not delivering. And over time, you can't escape from that. As you can't escape...
Sorry, go.
As you can't escape from the fact that there were early signs that the company was doing well already from an AI perspective and business strength perspective. But I think now we are seeing it very clearly among the very charts that I liked. This is probably my favorite. I've been insisting for quite a bit on the revenue per employee chart that many people say, oh, but this is useless. Actually, I think that was...
Oh my gosh, Arny.
Look,
this is why we listen every week, dude. It's for that. It's for the accent on how the haters talked about Palantir in 2022.
Okay, I literally just received a comment. Oh, this metric is useless. Oh yeah, so useless that it was the primary reason why I realized that this company was going parabolic. It only helped me doing 20x. So useless.
Dude, but it's true. Like they're still the bear comments haven't been that good this week. They've kind of, I think a lot of them got humbled, but there's people trying to sell their Substack subscriptions by writing their short thesis, and the arguments are so unbelievably awful. And then you have shit like that, and it's like, well, the metric created a 20x versus
Okay, this was this is the comment I just received. But to back what I was saying is, I wrote this article about making the comparison of Palantir and ServiceNow back in 2022. It was one of my first articles where I explained, look, ServiceNow is the best software company as of today. Like, look at the price here, like the revenue at 30% CAGR, the price action went parabolic. It's literally the best software company you can make a benchmark with. Okay, but what I did in this article back in May 2022 was, if you look at the small metrics that matter, that tells you about how strong the company is operating, you already spot some early signs of alpha. Like, ServiceNow is great, but Palantir is just another beast, is alpha. And you could see that from the revenues per employee, where the simple intuition is, we are talking about software companies. Software is scalable. Therefore, the bigger the companies, the more operating leverage you should have, the more efficiency you should have.
Which is why the market pays a premium, because if your costs are fixed and your software is scalable, free cash flow should print.
Exactly. What's common about these big tech companies? Let's exclude Tesla for a little bit because it's more manufacturing, but also relate to that, is especially for software, you have a lot of people in the early stages to build the platform, but once the platform scales, you need very few people to keep scaling. If you see something like this was 2022, remember, 3 years ago, we are already seeing signs of, okay, ServiceNow and Salesforce, they are the biggest software companies, B2B, and their efficiency in terms of revenue per employee is just flat. So this means they're growing, yes, but they're growing by hiring more people. If we look at the financials, it turns out we were just hiring more salespeople. Salesforce has something like 70,000 people. So imagine what a mess is that. Palantir has 4,000 people, and that is essentially stuck until 3 years ago. That's why when the metric was exploding here, but now we see this metric exploding even more thanks to AIP. There was a little bit of statistical error, let's call it this way, when the SPACs were added, because that created an anomalous boost in the revenues. But now that they normalized, we can clearly see how the trajectory was already very positive compared with the others. And now with AIP unlocking the power of AI, this metric is going just parabolic, to the point where after many years, Salesforce, ServiceNow, and Snowflake still have the revenue per employee kind of stuck at 500K. And Palantir right now is approaching 1 million. So twice as good. What's the cap? Well, if you look at the big tech companies like Apple, Google, Meta, and so on, this metric stands around 2 million. I don't see any reason why Palantir revenue per employee can reach more or less that level.
Yeah.
You know, I did that same benchmark for my Palantir, the free report that I posted. I benchmarked against C3 AI. But first, before we move on, I just want to make another dunking point. C3 AI was called the LeBron James of AI by our friend Dan Ives, so I just want to make that point on the analyst question. But yeah, I benchmark CrowdStrike, Cloudflare, Datadog, ServiceNow, Snowflake, Salesforce, Palo Alto Networks, Trade Desk, and Adobe, which are like the peers in the SaaS space. And Palantir dunks on like every SaaS company that exists on employee efficiency metrics, being revenue per employee. But the argument then is, well, Palantir also dilutes extremely, so they better be doing that. And I'm like, no, dude, when you look at SPC, the average SPC as a percentage of total revenues in the SaaS space is around 22-23%. Within this same peer group, Palantir is actually below the average. So they're getting the most out of their employees out of any of these. And it's not even close. Like, they are dominating that metric, and they are still compensating less than the average. So like, that really shows the powerful dynamic. Like, no, you guys you guys have it wrong. Like, Palantir does not excessively dilute, but if there was to be a company that deserves to like compensate their employees, it would be the company with like the best employee metrics that exist. Like, these are the most efficient employees in the world. They should be compensated well, but even that, like, no, they're not actually overly compensated when you put it as a percentage against revenues.
Also, when I think about dilution, dilution sucks because there's more shares added to the pie, and therefore we as shareholders own less of the pie. But one of the things about dilution, and Palantir has been diluting over the past couple of years, there are so many bidders. There's so much liquidity. Like, anytime anyone has ever sold Palantir has been a bad time to sell Palantir, including the insiders that have taken lots of profits, and they deserve to. But even they, after they take the profits, have to look back a month later and be like, shit, I could have made another couple $1 billion if I held on.
Do you remember, as end of 2022, how much annoying people were because Sham was selling at the bottom, like a big chunk, Karp was selling. Like, I mean, most of them, if not all, I don't really remember, were due to tax reasons. But the hate about the management selling, and overall, they were not all for tax reasons.
Yeah, and again, when the stock is stuck in the gutter, people are allowed to be mad at insider selling, not even if it's justified, but it's emotionally. Humans are going to be upset because their stock hasn't gone up. Insiders are taking profits. I don't know how anyone can complain about insider selling. If you want to sell Palantir, and you have Palantir, and you've had it for years, you've had every opportunity possible. The Palantir could fall 30% from here, and based on most people's cost basis, you could still sell and make life-changing money. So there is zero reason to be concerned about insider selling, because if the insiders do what they need to do, which is get the stock to go higher, and they take profits, then you can take profits as well. And if you don't want to, then you hold on.
I get the argument that it is a sign of confidence from management when they actively buy outstanding shares. Of course, when Palantir was single digit, it would have been nice and comforting to see management scooping up shares. I think Sham wrote on X that he actually was a net buyer in those numbers. But yeah, like, we haven't really seen any meaningful purchases on the open market from any Palantir employee. But I always said this, like, I get asked this a lot, and not only for Palantir, but a lot of stocks. And I always answer the same, like, insider purchases or sales are not part of an intrinsic valuation. So I just choose to completely ignore it as a whole. I think it adds a lot of noise that you don't need to care about, because it fundamentally doesn't change the intrinsic value of a business, which is what I base my investment decisions on. But I get the psychological part. Like, you're still like, wait a second, I'm buying every share hand over fist that I can get my hands on. Meanwhile, management is dumping on me. What does this mean? So of course that can create some thoughts in some investor bases heads. Of course, they were all proven wrong, as we can see in the new all-time highs and the share price appreciation of thousands of percent. But still, yeah, it would have been nice. It would have been comforting. Is it a big deal? Not to me, but I can see why a lot of people want that. Why a lot of people care about it.
I'll move the conversation a little bit because you were talking about employees receiving SBC, and I started thinking, okay, we know that the employees are a huge part of the moat. We know that they are driven by a mission, and that really helps the company consolidate its position. At the same time, I'm thinking, okay, now you will have all these other companies trying to catch up, trying to get similar to Palantir in terms of how well they operate. We are already seeing OpenAI essentially trying to clone the FD model, and now that Palantir is showing that what seemed a stupid way to make software, it is actually the only way to make software that works. So people are waking up and they will try to clone as well. My thinking is, do you see any reason how a new company can catch up with Palantir from a software perspective, from a structure perspective, or the advantage Palantir has is only set to dominate even more because there are some key ingredients that you see that can't be replicated?
Amir, any thoughts?
The moat, as we understand it for Palantir specifically, is the ontology. Now, I am not technically, versed enough to understand what a challenge recreating that would be. But at the same time, look, it is easier with like a hardware manufacturer like TSMC, where it's like clear, like, no, to even catch up to TSMC, you need to invest like $500 billion in capex, and even if you do that, there is no guarantee that you will get the same yield as TSMC, that you will catch up on the advanced nodes. Like, it's just too big risk to compete with TSMC. And I wonder if Palantir is similar, that they're just so far ahead that it makes no sense to even attempt to compete, because what management has been telling us, and as an investor, you either choose to believe this or not, because it's difficult to know, but they've been saying that, no, like, where they are today is not the result of like the past 3 years. No, like, they've been gearing up for this for like 15, almost 20 years, preparing to come to this point. And that's why they have so much leverage now, is because, no, like, they did all the hard work. They redefined how to create software, like in an unconventional way that no one believed in but themselves. So it makes you wonder, like, is it even possible to catch up to them now? Like, of course, some of the capabilities you can probably replicate, but the core moat is the ontology. And to be honest, I'm not technically versed enough to say how big of a moat the ontology is, and if it's able, like, can you reproduce that? Is there a point to do it when the ontology already exists? Like, who would switch, like, from the original, like, no, Palantir does this for us, and there's this new up and comer, like, are we gonna switch to that? So I don't know. Do you guys have any opinions on that? I'm simply not technical enough to know.
I think if there was going to be a replication of the ontology, it would have happened by now. I mean, Palantir spent 20 years and literally thousands of patents. Yeah, thousands of patents building it out. I mean, there's so much moat to the culture, the implementation, the FDE, all that stuff, but the actual tech moat, just based on conversations with Chad and everything he posts on Twitter, like, it seems like if another company could do that, like a C3 AI or anyone else, they would have done it. And then that actually leads into this conversation, Arny, and I'll let you respond to Amir, but also give me your thoughts on this. The customer count. So it's up 43% year over year. They're going to do $4 billion in revenue on less than 1,000 customers. I guess the broad question is, do you think that's replicatable? Can any company do 4 billion with, realistically barely any customers?
Essentially, no. You don't get to that point unless you started small and followed the Peter Thiel playbook. The reason why Palantir is at this stage now is because they started from a market that people felt it was stupid, it was too small, which was the defense side. People criticized Palantir so heavily for just being focused into that, but it turned out that was a big market, a very profitable market, and a market where you can have a dominant position, where if you become the standard of the government, not only it will be insanely hard to remove you, but you will have also an information advantage into know how to build a software with the highest degree of complexity and security ever, because you're literally touching the most sensitive data in the world, that data that can change the world order, to say it with words. So I don't see any way that someone can start from scratch and get so many customers, or getting so many customers paying that much. A company like OpenAI, for instance, already has a 100x multiple of those customers overall, because we're getting also retail people. The adoption from companies is relatively easy. And probably the playbook that we're now following is, people know us. Let's try to push a little bit with our FTEs so that we can get some exposure to the real use cases. And use cases, I think, is the key word when it comes to ontology. I think from a purely tech structure, the ontology will be replicable sometime, because the ontology per se is not a concept that only Palantir seeked to do. Like, Palantir were the first to really deploy this concept well and applied it to the real world. Like, the ontology as a concept is something that was already on. If you think of it, when we talk about these tech companies like Meta, they already have an ontology on you, so that they understand how Amit scrolling patterns are even when he pees. They know that. But here we are talking about use cases that are critical for any business. So even if you can potentially replicate the structure of ontology, and I think due to these AI copilot and so on, from a technical standpoint, sooner or later that will be replicable. What is very, very hard to replicate is, do you have the access to the most critical use cases so that your ontology can be refined, shaped, and be useful to actually solve new use cases? Remember, the reason why Palantir is because they could calmly build the ontology and Foundry with their partners like BP, that very patiently helped Palantir understand how to fit all the use cases, create the structure so that you can create the feedback loop from the use case to knowledge, and having this loop keep compounding. If you don't have the access to the use case, how can you replicate the ontology? How can you replicate the ontology of the DoD if you don't have access to the data of the DoD? How can you replicate the ontology of Maven that is for targeting if you don't have the data to the battlefield? Okay, imagine this also in the enterprise context. If Palantir is already being deployed by the key leaders of any industry, it means that Palantir has the access to the most complicated, juicy use cases. If you don't have access to that, how can you replicate a good enough ontology that can make your product actually work?
The government business feels like there's no way anyone could compete with them in a meaningful way.
So in the commercial side, I think it is more possible to get some competition. But here, my lack of technical understanding is compensated by a simple observation. It's already 2 years that Palantir released AIP. So far, we don't see anything that comes even closer. And we were scared from Microsoft Fabric when it was launched. As of today, it's like non-existent.
We did a whole Palantir weekly on Microsoft Fabric, potentially killing Palantir, and now it's...
Imagine this. Even in the case that tomorrow someone arrives with fake Palantir, call it Palantini or something like that, how would they get the trust to sell? So you have a or new company that for which it would be insanely hard to get access to the use cases, to the trust. Palantir spent 20 years to build this trust. Or you have established players like Microsoft and so on. And what we were expecting from these players is still nothing. Like the output is still nothing. They would need to change completely their business model. They need to essentially change everything. They need to accept that all their previous products are useless. So that makes Palantir in a position where, from a technical standpoint, there is no one literally competing with them in this market that is insanely huge, touching every industry. And on top of this, you need to think of, well, you have a product that is untouchable. What about the distribution? Amit, you are the master of the distribution. What other company can have a leverage in distributing the awareness as of Palantir from a word of mouth point of view, from a community point of view? What are the chances a new Palantir has the same component?
It's not possible.
You
Not at all.
made some great points there that should have thought of, but forgive us, it is 5-6 a.m. for some of us. Yeah, all of these years of industry expertise, like even the SPACs, investing in companies across different industries just to get exposure to, okay, what are the pain points here? Stuff like that. People in the chat mentioned patents. Didn't think of that, how restrictive that might be. But even Karp, during the earnings call, he said something that relates to this. He's like, dude, even Foundry from 3 years ago, we haven't seen anyone replicate the capabilities of that. And that's like 3 years ago. And Karp, during the earnings call, the clip we just played, he said, like, no, like we are onboarding people onto our capabilities of today, not Foundry from 3 years ago. So even like, it's not like Palantir stands still statically in a void and waiting for competition. No, they are moving along, and they have, the best, as we discussed, the best talent in the world. Like, they are executing, they are growing, they are coming up with new products. It's not like Palantir is standing still, and even then, like Karp looks down on Foundry from 3 years ago and where they are today, and we still haven't seen anyone even replicate what they were doing 3 years ago. On the customer count, I actually forgot to say this, but I observed something interesting. Unless Amit has something to add on.
No, you got it.
Let me share. I don't have a chart of this, but I want to show you something interesting for one of the bear cases that we discussed. So first, I'm gonna show you a chart. Okay, we're sharing. Wait, let's see. Non-US commercial. So this is the segment that we are all kind of bearish on. I've said this before, but from the first earnings call that Palantir ever had until now, even the latest one, in like 9 out of 10 cases, they will mention Europe as not growing, and we can see that. Like, ignore the numbers. Just look at the bars here. They are not going anywhere. They bob up and down with a 10 million up, 10 million down, but overall nothing has happened in non-US commercial. This is despite we know that they have Airbus, they have BP, they have Japanese companies adopting Palantir a lot. We know about South Korea, so something is clearly not working here. However, I noticed something very interesting to this. So if we look at the actual customer count, this might not appear well on stream, but I will read it out loud. Last quarter, Palantir got one non-US commercial customer, addition of one, a single customer. This quarter, 17. That is a big increase. That is an all-time high. They've never, 21 in Q4 of 2022. But outside of that, this is a big increase, which might seem like, okay, maybe things are starting to move along on the non-US commercial side. Of course, we know Palantir is about getting a client, and over time, as we can see with the net dollar retention, like clients start to spend more and more with Palantir over time. But non-US commercial net addition of 17 compared to 1 of the previous quarter. Q4 was strong overall, 12. But before that, it was like 5, 7. Another one that's kind of big, and that is an all-time high, at least for the reported quarters, is an addition of 10 new government customers. Like, how many government customers can there be? The agencies are limited. They are already in a lot of agencies in the US. They are in a lot of governments globally. So adding 10 new government customers, that's kind of big for Palantir as well. But overall,
Sorry, 10, but
10.
Including US plus international.
Yeah,
Right.
because they don't break out U.S. government customers the same way. So we don't know if it is international or U.S. We just know the net addition in government. For commercial, they do give us U.S. commercial customers. That's why we can make the calculation, but we can't do that for government. But what I wanted to say, overall, we have 849 customers total. And we are doing 1 billion now quarterly. As a reference, Salesforce is close to 200,000 customers B2B. Close to 200,000 customers. Palantir is at 849. Like, do you know how much potential there is for Palantir to keep scaling? Like, we're just like at the beginning.
Salesforce is $9 billion a quarter.
And close to 200,000 customers. They don't give us the exact figure, but they say about 200,000.
But that's crazy. They only do 9x more in revenue, but they have many thousands of % more of customers. Now, obviously, all those customers are not the biggest customers. They're small customers too. But still, it just shows the operating leverage and efficiency the Palantir has.
Also, consider Snowflake, a similar story. $1 billion revenue, but 10x 10, more customers.
Yeah, and we're talking like, when we talk about Palantir, I mean, we mentioned this many times about, well, Palantir customers, they do pay a lot, but what's the ceiling there? There is no ceiling. Like, you will pay 10 billion if you're gonna make 50 billion in efficiencies and revenue growth and improve the operating margins, like unit economics. There's no ceiling to how much Palantir can actually charge customers, which is like one of the most powerful dynamics in the stock market, to be honest. Like, I can't think of another company that has the same scalability potential as Palantir. And as we can see with the net dollar retention, it doesn't seem to be slowing down. And yeah, Palantir, very expensive. They make a lot of revenue from a small customer base, but the small customer base is very, very happy and just keeps spending more and more with Palantir. I mean, we get the top 20 customers metric. So still, out of these 849 customers, the top 20 account for 43% of revenues. So that's still like almost half of the revenues are just from 20 customers. But that just shows you that even like the most entrenched customers that are already spending, I think it was like 74.7 million on average for these top 20. Like, they are spending like close to 100 million on a trailing 12-month basis. And they're still increasing every single quarter because they're just getting so much value from Palantir. Like, imagine if we can scale to thousands of customers. Like, okay, imagine thousands from the 849, not even tens or hundreds of thousands, but still, like, the scalability of this. If you can move this all to like close to $100 million in annual run rate, I mean, dude. It's hurting my brain to even try to value this because it's just so crazy, the potential that is there. And I don't think a lot of people are even trying to do that math, because it's just like the scale is just, like blows your brain when you start to look at it from that perspective. Like, this is just the early beginning for Palantir.
Look, these were not rocket science arguments. Like, you just needed to sit down, trying to put the dots together, and you would have noticed some weird metrics going on. It's not from this quarter that Palantir has insane unit economics. It's not from this quarter that Palantir has the biggest revenue per customer in the industry, while having a product that potentially can scale everywhere. Like, if you just paid attention to these metrics and give it the right weight, you would have spotted some early signs of dominance. If you're waking up now, well, good for you, but how can I say?
Yeah, I've seen that argument. I saw Amit on X answering a lot of people. After this Q2 earnings, there were a lot of, bigger accounts on X being like, dude, imagine seeing Palantir at $7 and then riding it to, and Amit like, no, dude, all you had to do was look. We were looking back at 7. Like, we were doing, and as you mentioned, like during the earnings, like you had late night calls, discussing the company, looking at the company. As Arnie mentioned, like, it's not rocket science to see that, oh, dude, there is something special here. I mean, we saw it, probably a lot of the chat saw it as well early on, but a lot of people just can't grasp it. Like on X, there's been a lot of comments. I don't know, Amit, if you have anything to say about that, but
None
you've
of
been
us-
answering that kind of...
None of us has ever really touched difficult software. Like, we were fortunate to have conversations with good professionals.
Coldstrap.
We had the opportunity to interact with Chad and so on, but none of us had that technical understanding yet. We still understood.
Yeah, and I think we trusted Carp. I mean, like, the number one reason I think at 7, a lot of us started doubling down is because we saw more and more deals announced every day. We don't get that many PRs now because they don't need to, but back then we did, and we kept saying, hey, seems important, even if the stock isn't reflecting it. And then B, we had Carp. I mean, when I've focused a lot over the past couple of years of explaining how important communication is as a leader, as a CEO. I mean, why is Tesla worth $1 trillion with negative earnings growth for the past almost 2 years? Elon. People believe in him. So I think that just, like, overall belief. And then, it's all documented on the channel. There are 250 episodes of due diligence going back 3 years at this point. And we analyzed it. And we don't critique Palantir as much anymore because they don't give us much to critique. But for the first year, we critiqued their sales force and their sales strategy. Like, why the hell can these guys sell it's so good. Carp says it's going to go to the moon. It's an amazing software. Why can't they sell it? And so we went through that phase of critiquing it and trying to figure out, like, when we were going to have a moment of change. But then we had the moment of change in May of 2023 with AIP.
I mean, we were even discussing of firing Carp. We were discussing of splitting the government and commercial.
We were discussing it. I don't think any three of us introduced those ideas. There were other people that had those ideas. I think we all pushed back against it. But yes, we had those discussions.
I mean, now the only thing that you could say is, oh, Carp is a communist wearing a Patek. Come on.
There are some not friendly critiques about Carp right now. Last question for you guys. What do we do with the $6 billion in cash? What do you think? Do we buy back $6 billion worth of the stock? I mean, Amir, what do we do with this cash?
I would not buy back any shares at 190. To be honest, while interest rates are the way they are, it seems that is quickly coming to a close, given some of the economic data that is being presented to us as of late. Farm that yield while you can, but then it is a nice problem to have, as Arnie mentioned. I personally would have liked to see, it might be a bit late now, but strong ties with Anduril. I would have liked to see some investment there, but they are not cash constrained to grow.
Yeah.
That is the main thing. Like, they have been saying it for many quarters in a row. Like, pouring more cash would not make them grow faster. Like, they are just generating cash, and it's a nice problem to have. Like, okay, what do we do with all of this cash? If it was a mature business, the answer is simple. Just pay out to shareholders in the form of a dividend or share buybacks. But for now, to be honest, I don't even know. I trust that there will come an opportunity in the future where they will need to deploy a lot of cash to capture a future opportunity. That opportunity is not now. I don't know what that might look like, but I rather have it than not have it, I guess. I don't know. Like, I haven't given it much thought. I think most of us don't really know. Most of us agree probably that, yeah, should I invested in Anduril, maybe some other close partnerships and have a stake there. But outside of that, I'm kind of stumped.
I like it in the treasuries. One thing that people might not know, that the percentage of net income from net interest income, the percentage of net interest income of overall net income is down by half year over year, which is really good, because that means that we are collecting more operating income from our customers versus from T-bills.
17.2% of net income for this quarter. So this was a major bear argument. Like a year ago, it was 34%, and then Q1 of 24, it was almost half, like 41%. So yeah, it used to be close to half of net income used to be interest income, but now it's down to 17%. Keeps decreasing as the operating margins go up, of course, and that will continue. So it's not a big deal and not a bear argument that, like, yeah, Palantir is only profitable because interest income. So when the rates go down, they're gonna be, left naked when the tide goes out, whatever. Like, that's not the case at all. Yeah.
Great, Arny.
But I don't know.
Arny, any thoughts on the cash?
What I would like to see is something aligned with Emir. I would love to see that cash deployed into strategical opportunities that are not SPAC, but companies in the constellation around Palantir, talking about Anduril, and maybe companies close also to Joe Lonsdale and so on. So that's something I would personally like to see, that I know would be very beneficial over the long term, seeing the trajectory this company is headed to. But at the same time, I realized that could create some potential conflict of interest from new potential customers, where, wait a second, how can you really trust, how can I really trust Palantir if they're investing in our competitor? That could be a friction that would be not nice to see. I don't know how much it would be concretely a real problem, but I think in terms of perception, that would not really look great. So even if I would like that thing to be used, because if I think how much value was kind of lost since when we realized, hey, Palantir is like the hardware sister. And then there are these other companies that are very interesting, especially in the defense space. I feel that cash could have been deployed very well. At the same time, I do like having this cash position, because it's marketing on itself. Like, how can I trust Palantir? Okay, there is no way we're gonna fail.
Yeah.
We have a 6 billion in cash. And as long as the interest rates are high, it actually makes sense to keep receiving money at a zero risk rate. Then if, you have to consider that is also a sort of optionality bazooka, where if an opportunity arises, Palantir can go big. Have you seen, for instance, Robinhood having a big cash pile? The stock went down, boom, they bought aggressively the dip at a very good level. Now the Palantir is already buybacking, so they're getting more confident into how that works. Imagine a stupid, severe dip happen. With that cash, they can provide more value to shareholders potentially. So overall, I don't see, while I would like to see that cash being deployed somehow, the reality is I'm already very happy to see that optionality keep increasing, but it's not my core focus. The cash aside is what really makes you safe as an investor, knowing, okay, no debt, they're printing money, operationally speaking, there is no risk of bankruptcy. There is a marketing value attached to the cash, because that's a good story that justifies their printing money. At the end of the day, I'm already happy with getting some some additional money risk-free.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting though, because we haven't really touched on this in a while, but both the CEO and the co-founder are essentially perhaps or arguably some of the better investors in the world. Of course, you have Peter Thiel as the co-founder being like one of the brightest, smartest investors that the world has seen. Like, he's up there with the top of the top in terms of like being an investor. And then you have Karp, who also used to run a hedge fund. Like, so you have all of these people at the top, but no investments being made. It's kind of like curious,
This is strategical.
Yeah. Could be, what are your opinions, Amit? I want to know what you think about this cash pile.
I think they should keep it in T-bills. It's good net interest income. They don't have to worry about it. I don't think they should buy back the stock right now because obviously the stock's expensive. I like the investment route, but I mean, what really, really good opportunities are out there to invest? And the problem is, if they invest in some startup, like even if it's a really good startup, the startup has to grow to become a company for Palantir to get the value from that, unless the startup's paying them for Foundry, but then that just becomes like a SPAC situation. So I'd rather them just get some juicy T-bill income, increase the operating leverage, and it's free money every quarter, and the cash flow keeps increasing, which is why they keep getting higher cash piles. So I don't think they have to do anything with it, to be honest.
Yeah, but the yield isn't going to be above 4% forever,
Yeah.
It's essentially, okay.
But the problem is they're not going to invest in Bitcoin, right? They're not going to invest in anything risky. So I'd rather, even if they get 3% versus 4%, it's better than...
I'll tell you something that could sound paradoxical. I think Palantir should raise a little bit of debt.
A convertible note, really?
No. Like a simple, plain vanilla debt, very small tranche, just to make it. And the reason why is you want to start building your credit score the sooner. Even if you have the cash, so you are technically super safe, it's good for a potential future to start building the connections, the awareness in the credit market, because that is what allows you one day, when you will be insanely big, to essentially raise cash at no interest, like Apple.
I'm making a chart live on stream for everyone.
Someone said Palantir should pay Robinhood Gold and get the 4%.
Much.
Imagine it's only $5 a month. They can just dump their $6 billion into Robinhood, and then okay, while you're making this chart, let me
done.
Oh, you're done? Okay, never mind. Here we go.
So some decimals, boom. So
I
this
just want to say I am very jealous of Excel wizards because I've never been one.
I'm very basic, but yeah, I mean, we can already see the yield has peaked. It is going down, but still, even when the yield was like 2%, 1%, they still had the daughters waking up. But yeah, I mean, it is going down. It's not gonna be there forever, and yeah, I should probably excuse myself. So sorry for the interruption, everyone. It is 6:40, so time to wake up for some family members. I will see you guys next week, perhaps, for episode 260. We seem to be jumping 10 episodes per week here, so
were we at 240 last week? I thought we were at 240. I'll fix it if the numbers are off.
No, we always do that. just input something around. That's why I was laughing when you said, yeah, we've been doing this for 250 weeks. I'm like, dude, what?
Wait, isn't it like 5 years?
Yeah. All right. So thank you so much for having me on, and thanks so much everyone that's been here. We will catch you guys next week, maybe. All right.
Amir's Twitter right there. Thank you, Amir. We'll catch you later.
Thank you. Ciao.
All right. We'll end it off here, folks. It has been an incredible week. Obviously, one of those weeks that has changed many, many, many lives. And it's been a very exciting week in terms of how this momentum has played out. This is Alex Karp's message to shareholders at the end of the call on the earnings. And here is what he had to say to all the individual shareholders for Palantir.
Alex, as always, we have a lot of individual investors on the line. Is there anything you'd like to say before we end the call?
Maybe stop talking to all the haters. They're suffering. You know, don't tell them about how important the ride has been, how exciting it's been, how much you've enjoyed the ride, how much fun it is to send to write little emails to analysts that spent 20 years learning about software and have been wrong about every quarter. Maybe just, you know, just don't talk to them. There's some suffering going on. But for the rest of us, we are enjoying this time and we're enjoying it with you. And our performance and your support of it is both important because you deserve it. And we are grateful that you gave it to us, especially, and I definitely have not forgotten, there would have been no DPO. We would not have gone from our low share price to now. We would not have many of the clients we have, and we wouldn't have some of the pride we have without you. But I would also say our ability to win while sticking by what we believe is important for the world, because we live in a world where people are purveying half-truths, partial truths. Palantir gets attacked just because we help make this country even better, because we support the values, because we defend it. And, you know, us being able to win while having an opinion does have an impact on the world, if only because the people who think we are wrong or not good have to be a little jealous and suffer. And you know what? That's a good thing too. So I'm very, very proud of this quarter. And by the way, obviously to all the Palantirians who made this happen, you know, behind the scenes, we are just, to use Sham's term, grinding. And every day and all the time on our most important things we're working on. And, you know, we've had deployments here that because of their criticality, our people are working around the clock for half a month, around the clock on a cycle. And they're really proud to do that. And they have changed the arc of history. And your support inside the company and outside the company. And also, we're asking people to work in an environment when they come in here that is very different than anything they've ever worked on. You know, they most of them come from university where they've just been engaged in platitudes. Now it's frontline where things matter, and we do things very differently than anyone else. And the fact that Palantirians have aligned to do this, to work as a phalanx in the service of what I view as a higher purpose, and I think many agree with me, is an enormous accomplishment. And, you know, I speak for all of us who like work with these people. This is a very special environment, and I'm super proud to somehow ended up being your leader. So thank you.
Thank you. That concludes Q&A for today's call.
What a week, man. What a week. It's been a hell of a journey.
We went from some weeks where nothing really happened to boom, baby.
Yeah, for
Boom,
Arnie
baby,
and I,
boom.
boom, baby, boom. For Arnie and I, it's actually a little personal because I mean, both of us began building our content creator brands at the same time, essentially 2022, and both of us built it off the backs of Palantir. Like the only reason we have a following in this industry when it comes to stock picking, and it's not just content creating, it could be hedge fund managers, money managers, but we just do it on social media, right? Those guys do it more on the institutional side. It's about the horses you pick. You pick the right horse, the horse does well, you gain credibility. You pick the wrong horse, the horse does bad, no one cares about you, right? It's a cutthroat game. You've got to be right, and you've got to be right when people don't expect you to be right in order to gain. And anyone can call Amazon, you know, unless you're literally in 1995. But you know, you gotta be contrarian and be right. And I just remember Arnie and I had multiple late night Zoom calls, many times after Palantir Weekly. Like, and he's tired as hell waking up after, you know, early in the morning to do. But after Palantir Weekly, we'd be like, the stock's $9, $8. You know, the chat during those Palantir Weeklies, you know, they were excited, but they were also pissed off that the stock's not moving. And I think the number one thing we just believed in was our brands will accelerate if Palantir executes. We've tied our brands to Palantir. And the reason we did it was because we believe they would execute, right? We are going all in, literally, economically, and then metaphorically with our brands on this company. And sometimes in this game, you don't need many of them. You need to be right a couple times versus trying to get a bunch of different horses. You need to find the right horse. But if you find it and you attach yourself so deeply to it, and then the horse becomes one of the greatest horses in history, right? I mean, this is the greatest story on Wall Street, I think, in the last 5 years, outside of Nvidia. This is the story. It can do wonders for your brand. So I think Arnie, you would agree that this is just been an incredible journey for both of us.
I personally think this will be a more interesting story than Nvidia, because it started from being very controversial. There were few people that were true believers, and the true believers can keep compounding now the information advantage that they have been building for more than 3 years now into keep following the story. And the story seems to become like not only better, but way bigger. As you mentioned, it takes a little bit of faith when you attach your entire reputation, money. Literally, I went to a point where I had everything on the line. And I think the output for us is very different from those that now keep bragging of, oh, I'm in Palantir since everybody seems to be to have an average of at the bottom now. I don't really understand how. when the bottom was there, everybody was just scared to stop making content. Everybody disappeared. Now everybody has the average of 7. Frankly, I don't know how it happened. I mean,
yeah, I think if you have to tell people like you're early Palantir and people just don't know, then it's and obviously when a stock runs, people want to use it to gain credibility. But the OGs know, and the reason this community is so special is because we have so much documented evidence for the past 3 years of all of us being together doing this every single week. And I think that's what makes it special. And none of us expected this. $420 billion market cap. We just didn't expect that. Maybe there's some bulls out there who are like, I knew it was going to $420 billion in 2 years when it was at $6, but I didn't. I would have been happy by now if it was $25. I think Arnie would have as well, but it's exceeded our expectations. It's changed people's lives. And I think that's why this quarter was so emotional as well, to see them put up $1 billion in revenue.
Like, to me, it's frankly humbling, because I started investing in Palantir thinking, oh, I'm a decent investor. I was already making a living just by investing here and there, not like a good enough. But with Palantir, I really needed to make acceptance with the fact that I still understood nothing compared with what I could learn. And that's what I'm learning, that helped me understand also how to move into Robinhood. And before I mentioned the compounding advantage of building information, connecting operating models, mental models. Okay, there's a reason why we were able to spot not only Palantir, but also Robinhood, because we started getting a sense of dominance. Is once you start touching these companies, you realize that some companies are just built different.
Yeah.
And it's not something that can really change. You already see it from the DNA. Personally, that's why I like to make fun of SoFi, not because I think it's a bad company. I think it's a good enough company. But I don't see that DNA of dominance that Robinhood has. It's a good company. That's it. There are many good companies, but there are so few alpha companies that when they operate, they wake up every morning thinking, okay, how we control the market.
Yeah. Yeah. And what makes the journey so special as well is just like all of us being here together, figuring this thing out. I mean, you mentioned so many people, Sachin, like there's like so many people to name, but everyone who's been part of this community contributing their own types of due diligence, and then us being able to communicate that due diligence to the masses. And there's been a lot of people that, they're nurses, they're policemen. They don't have time to make content or read tons of articles, but they tune in here or there. They tuned in 2022, 2023. They trusted the analysis, and as a result, Karp and the team executing have really paid off. And I think that's the real reason why Karp takes shots at the analysts, right? Like people said he was arrogant for saying read 'em and weep and saying these player hater. And I don't think that's arrogance. I think that's deep humility by Karp realizing we were so counted out and we came back and proved everyone wrong, that now we get to say that they were the ones who were wrong. But for years and years and years, Palantir kept doing it their way when the world wanted it to do it the other way. And that was not the dominance DNA that Arnie's talking about. And now that dominance DNA has led to results that really feel like it's just big. Like this is going to get better and better and better. And it, as you said, Arnie, I think it will become the hottest story over the next decade.
Okay, once you claim to be dominant and you can back it, and you look around, there is no other company like you, what happens is you capture everything. You capture the attention, you capture the market share, you capture the profits.
And Karp said, our goal is to take the market. I mean, Karp got so much shit back in 2023, AIPCon. I think stock was 17. And Bloomberg said, what's your pricing strategy? He's like, we don't have one. He was like, what do you mean you don't have it? Like, how do you price? He's like, no, we're just going to win everything. And we'll figure out how to but the underlying argument, people that, he doesn't get business. Is like, no, you don't get business. Because in business, you provide value, and unconditionally, when you provide actual value, not bullshit value, real value, you get paid every time, every single time. And finding out the mechanisms of payment are relatively simple when a company can't live without your software.
You know, that meme with the bell curve with the IQ, like very low IQ, good enough IQ, crazy high IQ. Isn't it the same? Like, we don't have a pricing strategy. People thought, Karp is an idiot. This from the big majority of good enough IQ. It turns out that we don't have a pricing strategy was like at the absolute top of that IQ curve.
Yeah. It's just so many contrarian things and approaches to business. But at its core, again, I think this we can end off on this. Retail actually listened. Retail listened. Institutional investors saw Karp as crazy. Retail was like, no, this guy's just speaking common sense. Like, you will get paid when you provide value. Why is that hard to understand? That's not hard to understand. And then you have to trust, can Palantir deliver value? But the institutional guys were so worried about the nitty gritty or intricate minutia that missed the entire picture. And now they have to upgrade it from 80 to 150 and recommend it at these levels.
You went on the personal level. On my personal level, I have to thank you, all the funds, hedge funds, the banks that didn't hire me, because otherwise I would not be here now. Because when you work in a corporation and you are the luxury analyst, you are the tech analyst, you wake up and you get intoxicated every day just by the same things. I think it is actually this contamination of ideas, having the opportunity to focus your attention 7 hours a day on Palantir, that got us that perspective. It takes a lot of time. Like, I made those articles that I showed before, not only because, I wake up and wanted to do, like, I needed to understand stuff, and I needed to be pushed to structure the thinking to better understand what I was doing. So yes, I loved sharing the content, but it was needed also for myself to really put the ideas in order. It's like, okay, I'm an idiot spending so much time, all my reputation into this, or maybe it's the outside world that is not understanding what I see, what we see.
Isn't that the journey of a lifetime? The journey of a lifetime, I think, like, objectively, and I think a lot of people will agree with me on this. The journey of a lifetime, like, you have one life, right? We all live, then we die. The journey of that life, I think, or the most thrilling part of one of the most thrilling parts of that journey. There's a lot of different nuances to what it means to go on the thrill of a lifetime, but one of the thrills is the world disagreeing with you and you being right. One of the thrills is you saying, I have an idea, no one gets it, I am right, everyone else is dead wrong, and when I'm right, everyone's going to realize how right I was. And many times Arnie and I had that conversation late at night when we were like, dude, we are so right about this. Stock's at $7-8. When this thing's at 20, 30, we didn't know when it would happen. We probably thought it was way later.
We were thinking 2030 was already.
We're like, all right, that's gonna. But like, we were like, dude, when this thing goes from 7 to 20, everyone's gonna be like, holy crap, like, these guys knew it. And that was kind of our fundamental logic, was like, we should keep doing this and lean in. It's already been 18 months. We might as well keep doing it regardless of what happens to the stock. Because if we're right, which we think we're going to be right, and that's what made it thrilling. It's like we didn't know if we would be right, but we thought we were going to be right. If we are right, the upside is asymmetric, literally on the stock and on our reputations. And if we're down, it's like, okay, these two guys didn't know what they were doing for 3 years, but we ended up being right.
And we don't need to brag every day.
And we don't need to brag about
it. Palantir at $7.
Yeah, and that's when you don't need to tell people because it's all documented. That's also what makes it very, very special on this journey.
I mean, even people that don't follow us still must have seen over the course of 3 years these degenerates keep talking of Palantir.
Yeah, I mean, there's plenty of people that don't like Arny and I. I mean, we have a lot of just people that hate us. Like genuinely, they're not fans of us, but there's not much they can say. I mean, they can complain about Palantir's valuation all they will, but they missed the thesis. And they were really busy complaining about whatever they complained about versus understanding what Karp was saying. And because of the bond Arny and I created in analyzing Palantir, as he said, we found Robinhood. And Robinhood is the closest thing to Palantir we've seen in terms of the stock, 7 to 100, but also in terms of the execution. And we're trying to find the third one. I know everyone wants the third one. We are trying to find the AA pick on the third. It's been really hard. We haven't been able to do it yet. I don't know if we'll ever be able to find a Palantir Robinhood, but
and look, the yardstick now is so high.
Yeah.
But you keep asking yourself, but should I really find a new one? Or should I just follow what we have?
Yeah. It's just...
That's the hunting process is what makes it fun.
The hunting process is what makes it fun. What is your mom said about Palantir? Like she knows you're all in like how has she reacted to all this?
I see it from the output. She was Arny should get a job. Now she doesn't.
So when you were writing those Substack articles for free, by the way, and you really didn't have substantial amounts of income, she was bugging you to get a job. And now it's just like she understands that you figured it out.
Well, maybe probably she realized that, okay, my son maybe he's not an idiot.
Well, that's actually true about my parents too, dude. I mean,
look at from a parent's perspective. Like now, when you do something like this, you understand what you're doing. Once you do something that is generally understood, let's say you prepare for the Olympiads of kayak, you could see what you're doing. But from the parent's perspective, what you see is just a son that stays 10 hours a day crunching numbers, talking to people online. From your perspective, is this guy is an idiot who does nothing and talks to me about how his life will change.
It's true, dude. I mean,
about this Karp guy with crazy hair.
Yeah, I think when my mom and dad saw me making Palantir videos, they had no clue what I was doing. They had no idea why I was doing it. But then Palantir finally started moving and they started seeing, and then Arny came over to my house because we both went to AIPCon and they kind of saw the effect of this company getting popular. And now they're just like, oh, everyone cares about the thing my son has been talking about for 3 years, you know? Mm-hmm. And that makes a parent feel special because it makes them feel like A, they weren't wasting their time, but B, they discovered something that the world really cares about, which is always a really cool feeling.
Okay, now every time I make a post, like my mother immediately puts the like.
She's there. She's the first like.
There was a moment of reckoning. I would say when the stock went up, yes, of course, like her perspective changed. Like, okay, you can actually make a living by doing this. But it was when we got invited to the AIP Expo.
Yeah.
Thank again, Eliano, for inviting us. That my mother realized, wait a second. He's doing something good.
Yeah, he's flying out to this this country that he's never been to before, and he's at this AIP event. Like, I think it was a big moment for you, and it was a big moment for us to be together. And Arny will be in New York at my new apartment in September. There's an event that we are going to be going to. People will find out about it later, but yeah, it'll be very good to connect again in person and, you know, be able to grab a drink for what has happened over the past year.
Dressed
All right,
with
folks.
hoodies.
What do you say?
Dressed with hoodies.
Dressed with hoodies. We have to make sure to have some hoodies. Yeah, my sister is still like, who's Carp though? My sister has a $20 average on Palantir because I forced her to let me take her money out of Bank of America and buy Palantir with it. And still she probably can't even say who. She wouldn't recognize Carp, you know? So but like you have that same story. You have all these friends that you probably told, hey, I'm interested in Palantir. They invested in Palantir. They told their family. They have no idea what Palantir. They're not obsessed with it like us, but their lives are changed. And it's like, that's just, it doesn't happen that often. It really doesn't. And that's why it's very special. In fact, I think Arnie, you remember this. I posted this. We went down memory lane last night on Twitter, but I made a video when the stock was at $7, $8 back then, trying to be a little bit more entertaining because, you know, community needed some joy when the stock not moving. And this was my earnings prediction video outside. Here's a 30-second clip of what we were doing at the time to try to make this journey exciting before the stock price really reacted. First thing I want to see in Palantir's Q1 2023 earnings is U.S. commercial growth. Full year 2021, they did $201 million of revenue. By full year 2022, that went up 67% to $335 million of revenue. Alex Karp has basically gone on pretty much every interview over the past couple months and has said U.S. commercial is growing like a weed. Now, last time I checked, weed makes you high. So if it's growing like a weed, it should be growing high. And so I'm pretty excited for U.S. commercial growth. First thing I want to see in... Dude, the stock was $7 back then.
So like, cool with a tractor.
Yeah, I don't know why the tractor was there, but when we were editing it like 2 years ago, we were like, this tractor just makes it better. We're just gonna keep it.
That was a forecast of your interview with Figure CEO.
Yes, exactly.
With a robot. You see, our guy went from having tractors in the back to having effing robots.
Exactly. But it's like the fact that and Arnie has his, we did so many live streams. Arnie did a bunch of different things at the time. Like Arnie made it wasn't on Palantir, it was Alibaba, day in the life of Alibaba shareholder. But it was like all these ideas that we had at the time when the stock was just dead, because we tried to make it fun and entertaining, and we all knew it was going to eventually pop and it would be special. But in the meantime, you know, we needed to create the content that would get us through that time. And I think people really appreciated it as well, which also made this very special.
I was thinking when you showed the video, I was thinking of...
oh, you did do a day in the life as a Palantir shareholder. Hold on, can we watch this, bro? It's 2 minutes. Yeah, let's play this.
January 2022.
Okay, let's play this. Here we
go. Does the other work?
No, it doesn't. I'll do it on my side because I can't hear it on yours. I'll do it on my... Dude, I thought it was only Alibaba. You did do day in the life.
I did the day in the life and then the week in the life. That was touching all the community.
Okay, here we go. I haven't watched this in I think 2 years. So let's see this. Day in the life of Palantir shareholder. Arnie, June 2022.
My day starts at 7:25. Before the alarm, I check if Cathy Wood bought Palantir.
Increase the audio if you can.
Bought the dip. It's gonna be a good day.
What do you say?
Increase the audio if you can.
I think that's the highest audio. Yeah. Okay.
My day starts at 7:25. Before the alarm, I check if Cathy Wood bought Palantir. Queen Cathy bought the dip. It's gonna be a good day. Insiders keep selling shares. Or regular. Tax reasons, they say. 8 a.m. I go out. The water is calm, but the seagulls are nervous. FUD is coming. What really disturbs me is that snow over there. I hate snow, since Snowflake is outperforming Palantir. I get triggered. I start joking. After shower, I can finally wear my uniform. 9:15. I check the news. Kramer is negative on growth stocks, the signal I wanted. Karp made friend with John Elkann, Stellantis chairman. New contract coming. Good job, Papa Karp. 10 a.m. I update my financial model to reflect my conservative estimates that will make me rich. I refuse to use DCF models. Knowing one day Palantir will be $1 trillion is enough due diligence. It's 1 p.m.
Dude, we're at 420 billion. Like, it's like these were jokes, but like it's happening, bro. It's happening, which is the craziest part about this.
I don't know to choose between pizza and spaghetti. Oh, if only I could have Palantir doing a simulation. Pizza wins. Pizza is never enough. 2 p.m. I watch Papa Carp skiing. His hair is healthy, so the company is doing great. But that doesn't matter because he's diluting us. 2:30, I feel weak. I look for support on Reddit. I see people YOLOing. That convinces me again. 3 p.m., new contract with Hyundai. Unfortunately, the only rule that moves Palantir stock is good news, PLTR drops. 3:30, markets open. As I said,
was
4
really a
p.m.,
thing.
a daily dose of Palantir vision. It seems another person having no clue on Palantir said PLTR is the worst stock in the world. Did he work on Wall Street? Tom Nash defends the honor of Palantir community. Don't f with Palantars. My sense of community is reinforced. Palantars strong. One day will be stronger than Tesla community. Palantars have a ritual, asking what's their average price. There's only one good answer, never low enough. But I'm frustrated because I'm already all in and can't buy the dip. It's dinner time. I eat bread and mean. The drop is less painful now. 10. Market closes, still down, but a fat finger entered. My confirmation bias is ready for tomorrow. I look at the stars, remembering the good times when Palantir was at $40, and pray for fellow Palantars failed in YOLO. They went from 1 to 0. 11:30, I get ready to dream the moon, secretly hoping for something bad to happen, so that Palantir could close new deals.
Dude,
Wow.
I have not seen that in 3 years, bro. Dude, that was good. Like, it takes time to appreciate how good that was. That was absolutely incredible. Like, all the elements, I'll link it in the chat for those that want to, for all the elements of the community, all the different things that we were dealing with at the time. Stock not moving, Carp interview, Kramer, general sentiment on Reddit. I mean, that was special.
Little tear.
Yeah, now Arnie's day in the life is I travel to a new country with my Palantir gains, and I that. And literally, that's your life now. You're traveling.
And I have my cappuccino.
Have my cappuccino, and all right, folks. This has been an awesome journey. Regardless of what happens to the stock, it's up there. Could it fall back down? Sure. Could it keep going higher? Yes. But I think all of us are just really blessed to have covered this for the past couple of years. And, Arnie and I would not be here unless you guys actually cared about the content and you guys tuned in to the videos that I did outside or that Arnie did in his day in the life. And the fact that you guys have stayed for so many years is what, it's what makes this fun. Like, this would not have been fun without an actual community coming together across the world on this one singular idea of Palantir, which is what makes a community special, right? When there's one idea that brings everyone together. And that's what Palantir did for all of us.
Love that comment. Imagine your mom watching you make that video.
Oh, man. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it. Congrats on the week. And we will see you next time.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Amit, for sharing this journey. Actually, I said it once, but I have to say it once again. I literally started making content on Palantir due to Amit. Because I never posted anything. I just posted a screenshot of Black Sky being used for to understand the battlefield. And I just literally wrote PLTR tag without writing anything. And I took that picture, created a post, a decent post on it. And that's what it's like, oh, so I'm actually able to share something valuable.
Yeah, Arnie told me that story for the first time he came to New York. I had no idea because I forgot how Arnie and I met. I just thought it was Twitter, but he was like, no, dude, I wasn't even a creator. I posted something, you quoted it, and that made me feel like I could keep posting. And I think it was that sort of, the like all of us just supporting each other in the community is what allowed more content creators. And then by you posting more content, which in written word was objectively better than me because I'm horrible at writing. I would read your articles and read your posts and see your charts. I'd be like, dude, Arnie's really good. And I would get ideas and stuff. And so like, it was just such a compounding effect of content on the company, which made the content for the community better. And then eventually, Palantir executed it and it helped all of us.
Yes, because as a former analyst, I was traumatized of writing things. Like I was researching like hell, but I didn't like the idea of writing because writing to me was a sort of a torture I needed to do to just drop a report I was not really believing into.
Yeah.
And that's why I want to thank you personally, because with that, not only I got triggered into entering this loop, but I started finding something I was really enjoying, but was synthesizing everything that I was learning into something that is not only useful, but also nice to do. Like I like when I make some provocatory posts. A little bit of flame is always good.
I love it. Arny, thank you so much for being here on this journey. Sachin, you got to be on next week, man. It's been a while. Sachin is an OG. We started this podcast with Sachin 3 years ago. So Sachin, hopefully you can make some time in the coming weeks and we can get your thoughts on everything Palantir. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it. Thank you, Arny. Congrats on a great week for everyone. And we will see you next time for Palantir Weekly.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.